Hello, thank you so much for watching our presentation. This is Group F with myself, David Torres. We have Joshua Baker, AJ Burning, and Tice Robinson. Today we talk about the earnings quality in Medtronics and Abbott. Starting off with section A, which is regarding the amounts of doubtful accounts, or their our adjustment to charge our adjustment to the bad debt expense. In Medtronic, there was a deduction for negative 42 million, and Abbott a deduction of negative 39 million. Before I go into the numbers of how we came up with these numbers, I would also like to explain how is it that these companies come up with the certain amount they need for allowance of doubtful accounts. So according to the notes, there is no specific number. However, they do give some pinpoints on how they do this. So starting with Medtronic, they say that they look at the past experience to see how many people people usually pay or don't pay. They consider specific details about customers, like if they had any trouble paying before, and they believe a customer if they believe a customer won't pay, they mark that money as a loss and take it from the allowance and they set it aside. As far as Abbott goes, they decide on how much to set aside by looking at how old the unpaid bills are and noticing payment trends. They consider the history of unpaid bills and they are if there are any risky customers. They monitor other factors like problems in the countries where customers are. There could be a wars going on, for example, Ukraine and things like that. Those definitely are factors to consider when deciding these kind of things. And if all efforts to collect the money fail, including going to court, they write it off as a loss. So now we can go over how is it that we came up with these deductions. So starting off with Medtronic, from we we can see the numbers here from 2024, 2023, 2022. I'll explain here at 2022 just a bit, but first we want to just look over the changes from 2023, 2024. Sorry. So from net sales, there was a change of 3.8% up. For accounts receivables, 2% up. And however, there was this, if account receivables are going up, you will expect the amount of downs being collected to increase, but in this case, it decreases to 1.7%. So it's something that we also want to consider into pointing why this is happening. So with this, we went ahead and took out the percentage that allowance doubtful accounts takes in accounts receivable. So 2024, 2.75, 2023, 2.85, 2022, 3.98. So with this, we took the average of the biggest gap. So in this case, it was 2023, 2022. And we put it as the average for 3.41, and we put it labeled as model the allowance of doubtful accounts for percentage for account receivables. With that number, we multiplied the percentage times account receivables to give us the modeled ADA, which resulted to 215. And we then subtracted the 215 minus the 173 so it was the model ADA minus the actual ADA to 42 million dollars, which in result gave us the additional bad debt expense to negative 42 to be adjusted to the net income. Now looking at Abbott going forwards with just kind of going into the ADA as a percentage to account receivables, we took the averages of all of them, and we noticed the biggest gap was between 2023 2022. So we disregard 2021. So we took that average and got 6.89 6.89. With that percentage, we multiplied that times account receivable because that's the total amount that we would have gotten with the modeled ADA 483. With the 483, we subtracted that to the 444, the actual ADA, which resulted in $39 million, which gave us the adjustment of negative 39 million as the additional bad debt expense. It's going on to section B. There are no LIFO adjustments, nothing in the notes that refer to neither company using LIFO.
All right. So when it comes to the write down of assets, Medtronic, we added 371 and Abbott, we added 131. Abbott had a fixed asset impairment of about 31 million and another one of 100 million of indefinable lived intangible assets. We combined those to get 131 million. Medtronic, similar. Uh, Theirs was a little harder to find, but they had about 371 million of non-cash impairments and write-downs through in the year 2024. With Section D, it was a little easier to visualize it with the charts. If we were looking at repair and maintenance, both companies didn't have any specific numbers for the repair and maintenance. It was mentioned, but they didn't spend enough for it to really matter in the financial report. Research and development, both companies, their ratios were very similar. As you can see, Medtronic is within the 8% and Abbott is within the 6%. Advertising and marketing was interesting. They mention it, but they group it into the selling general administrative section. They meant both the notes have mentioned that marketing is a part of this, so we decided to include it in here. In Medtronic, the ratios are really close. They're within 1% of each other, so no adjustment was made. However, when it comes to Abbott, you can see a very big jump between 2022 and 2023. So we took the average ratio of that of 26%. We were able to get the more typical advertising marketing expense of 10,440. And taking that, we found that they spent about 509 higher than what it should have been in 2023 compared to 2022. All right, and same for section E. It was easier to visualize with the charts here. When we look at reserves, they're both labeled a little differently. Restructuring costs were pretty low for both. They had high net sales. Average ratios were pretty similar, except for when it comes to Abbott or Medtronic on the left, we see that there is a difference. The same thing, we took the average ratio and found that the adjustment was $81 lower than what it should have been. So we add $81 to adjust for that.
For section F, add back charges for in-process research and development. So IPR&D is fairly significant for both companies. Um, and so uh, as you can see from Abbott, it mentions 787 million accounted for in 2023. And then it also mentions this 100 million, which Tice also kind of included in his write down section, so was not included as part of the research and development piece. Um, so for Abbott, this would be 787 million. And then Medtronic lists this about one time as 385 million on page 76. These are all pretty much related to acquisitions that were acquired and then the in process research and development associated with those acquisitions. And in both of these cases, the that expense is added back into their overall net income, uh, as it essentially removes that IPR&D cost from the income statement, so it can present a more normalized view of earnings. Next section. And then for section G, add or deduct losses and gains from sales of assets. There are none for either company. They are typically not in the business of selling assets as a way to generate earnings. So none for either. In section F, related to interest income, uh, the interest income as a whole for both companies is pretty small in comparison to net sales. So we then looked at interest income as a percentage of net sales, and you can see overall they're both fairly low, but for both companies, interest income as a percentage of net sales is fairly increasing from 2021 through 2022, and then even more so in 2023. So for that reason, um, although low, the overall amounts were adjusted back, uh, were removed from the net income. And that's typically because in either of these cases, the interest income is considered a non-operating income source. And while it's it's kind of great that the interest income is increasing and could be seen as a positive, which means that they might have a healthy loan portfolio and potentially stable revenue streams. Um, we would, you know, further analysis might be warranted to assess uh, where is the source of growth and level of risk associated with those investments too. Because as we can see, their overall net income, especially on the Abbott side, is decreasing from 2021, and so maybe they're trying to supplement their earnings through interest income. Next slide. And then for section I, add or deduct equity losses or income. In both cases, they had equity losses, and those were added back into the overall net income. For Abbott, this was mentioned on page 32 with 39 million total in equity investment impairments, and then similarly on Medtronic with larger equity losses of 291 million. And these are added back as equity losses can impact earnings quality, as these are typically one-time losses and can obscure underlying business performance.
Okay. So for J, for both Medtronic and Abbott, litigation charges primarily represented the non-recurring, unusual, and infrequent items. For Abbott specifically, like for example, they're dealing with a preterm infant formula lawsuit. And Abbott's been involved with various legal proceedings, estimated a range of possible losses between 30 million and 45 million. They have accrued 40 million for these litigations and environmental liabilities as of December of last year. Medtronic, as you can see, reported a bit more. In 2022, there was 95 million. Last year, 30 million in litigation income, and this year, Medtronic's recorded 145 million in litigation-related charges. So those are the respective deductions that we attributed. So for K, add or deduct non-recurring amounts of income tax expense was rather self-explanatory. So for Abbott, in 2023, income before taxes was just over 6.5 billion. Income tax provision was calculated as 941, or given as 941, and the effective income tax rate was 14.1%. Through my calculation, I came at 939.62, which was a deduction of 1.38. Medtronic, on the other hand, utilized non-GAAP nominal tax rate of 16%, which was different than the 23.42%, creating a $309 million discretion. Medtronic's effective tax rate is higher than Abbott's, indicating their different tax strategies. But both companies show significant income tax provisions, just emphasizing the impact of non-recurring items on reported earnings. And for L, I could not find any losses or gains that were attributable to discontinued operations for your company.
And then lastly, without going through every single item that we went through, but you can see the Medtronic's initial unadjusted net income was $3.7 billion. After our additions and deductions, we come out a little bit ahead of about $2.8 million or $280 million. Above their unadjusted net income. And then on the Abbott side, a little bit in the reverse. So net income, $5.7 billion, and then adjusted almost $900 million down after our additions and deductions. And that is assignment number 4 for Group F.